to Cheryl Atkinson, a reporter who resigned from CBS News, coming out with a book. She talks about a theme in covering the events in Benghazi, but also applies to other scandals like IRS, Fast and Furious. Here she's speaking to the editor of Reason in an interview where she highlights what is important about Benghazi and what those in the administration and those in the mainstream media are applying to those seeking the truth and the strategy, the strategery behind it. Roll it.
I think like any government that may be facing criticism, especially 8 weeks before a presidential election, right, this was crucial and could have been devastating to them. If we knew everything then that we know now, like 1 week after it happened, I think that really would have been devastating to the campaign. But I think the primary goal for any political group that is in a position like this would be to delay the release as long as possible of the damaging details, which they've effectively done in many cases. And as they dribble out slowly, they begin to say, well, now it's old news and who cares? And they've had time to try to politicize and controversialize the reporting, which all serves the purpose, I guess the initial goal.
Controversialize and politicize. Controversialize the reporting. Politicize it. Politicize it, controversialize it, so people can come back with these types of statements. Yesterday, this week with George Stephanopoulos, former White House Communications Director, David Plouffe, and Rick Santorum, and Cokie Roberts, and Van Jones of now Crossfire, but I will reference what he was a part of before, and Laura Ingraham Show, as well as known to be a conservative commentator and radio talk show host, author, best-selling author. I have a great deal of respect for Laura Ingraham. I don't listen to other talk radio, period. I've had the privilege of working with Laura in the past and meeting her and at events and being a part of things, and just solid. That said, we go to the opening question about the Benghazi emails, which David Plouffe was on, regarding the White House advancing the story about the YouTube video for Susan Rice, the Ben Rhodes email, which David Plouffe was on the list of recipients. Roll it.
I think, lawyers have spoken to this, and it's out now. I think, listen, what Benghazi was a tragedy. What we need to do is figure out how to prevent it from happening again, and to try and hold those accountable, as we did bin Laden. It took a while, but after 11 years, we did. I think what you see, listen, the USS Cole bombing, 17 of our sailors died. The weeks before the 2000 election, what did then Governor Bush say? It's time for our nation to speak as one voice. Now, you couldn't handle that in this party. This has been politicized like we've never seen before. And I think what's happening, Richard Nixon talked about a silent majority back in 1968. There's a very loud, delusional minority that's driving our politics, that's in control of the Republican Party. There's no conspiracy here at all.
Loud, delusional minority, Laura?
Well, this is why Obama won in 2008. This guy is really good. And look, what we know now from the email is that from the beginning, the administration saw Benghazi as a political problem. You're on that email. You were the White House, senior political advisor, and this was a political problem. You had a tough campaign. You had Mitt Romney. You didn't think it was going to be a big blowout at that point. You said, and I just want to go back, I think this is important. You said on September 30th, September 12th, you said in the days afterward, it wasn't clear that it was a terror attack. You said in November, right before the election, you said it's unprecedented politicization. The politicizing was going on at the White House, and that email was clear evidence of it. And the State Department admitted in the new email just released, Cheryl Atkinson had the report, that the Secretary of State, the Assistant Secretary of State, Beth Jones, said Ansar al-Sharia responsible for this attack.
I don't think
you knew it was a terror attack.
I don't want to have a prosecution here. The fact is,
I think people want a prosecution, actually.
Okay, so senior advisor, not communications director, pardon me, at the time, White House, he's known as the political guru, David Plouffe, advances something knocked down completely by Laura Ingraham with the facts, Ansar al-Sharia, that hitting home that it was a terrorist attack and you politicized it, going to the Alinsky idea, which is to accuse those of what you're doing, projection. But Cokie Roberts comes in. Now, understand, this is a theme during this debate, and this will be a theme throughout. No, the panel has 3 liberals, 2 conservatives. one former senator and presidential candidate runner-up, and radio talk show host, sitting next to Van Jones, who is, well, I'll get to that. And George Stephanopoulos, the man who introduced the war on women, at least the contraception question, into the debate out of nowhere. Remember that. Former Clintonite. Remember that. Not conspiratorial. Reality. But understand what happens here. Laura Ingraham hit it out of the park. She put the spank on that one. Big time. I mean, it was a fastball, and she just knocked it out. It was beautiful. And it was beautiful because I cut through what was being put out as the spin. But notice what happens. Enter Cokie Roberts, the senior former co-host of This Week. Listen to what happens. Roll it.
Looking at the reporting on Benghazi, it's like alternate universes. Yeah. You have one group of people saying, "Look, there was nothing. We weren't doing anything here," and another group of people saying it was all evil. The truth is, the White House should have released this email. That was a big either mistake or venality. And it's also true that everybody does talking points before Sunday programs, and that the talking points are about politics and limiting political damage.
Can I just say a couple things? Look, first of all, I worked in the White House. You get these FOIA requests. Let's talk about reality. You get these FOIA requests. It's a judgment call. You have a lot of stuff to get out there. They got out there what they thought was appropriate. Then they looked at it again, and it turns out there were 2 bullet points out of like 20 that were on Benghazi. You know what? Let's get more out. So no good deed goes unpunished. They actually did another review and put more out there, and now that's a...
Well, this was in response to a different set of subpoenas by the Judicial Watch. But I want to bring this over to Rick Santorum.
Yeah, great job there, field contending there. Let's just look. The response to her point, she has them, rather than a host coming in going, wait a second, that is true. What is your response, David Plouffe? Or Cokie Roberts, what is your response? You get, one side, this side, and they all try to do it, and they should have done this. And then a story that Van Jones wasn't even up on. So he confuses everybody. Oh, these were, no, you don't know what you're talking about. These were emails that were given at one time, by the way, redacted so heavily, so they tried to hide it. Why did they try to do that? And they have to kind of correct him while getting to Rick Santorum, who focuses in and says, hey, yeah, they're going to need a committee on this. They misled, in essence. They're going to need a committee. And mentions Boehner's reluctance to do it, not by those words specifically, but mentions that, which David Plouffe had a wonderful time with. Roll it.
I think that's one of the things that actually is troubling here. We actually are in a situation where the Republicans who are yelling about this now did not do the appropriate funding early on. And one
respond to that.
Well, first of all, we have to not forget we have 4 dead Americans. U.S. ambassador's body was dragged through the streets. Okay, it was beyond heartbreaking and beyond infuriating. We still have no one in custody, have an arrest warrant out, no one in custody, and in the immediate aftermath, the response was to go political. Yeah. And I would say, David or Van, if this were George Bush who had done anything like this, you would be going nuts on it. Okay?
I want to respond to this. That's not fair.
You would be going ballistic.
First of all, there were 13 embassy attacks on George W. Bush. There were 13. 88 people died. 11 Americans died.
You would be screaming conspiracy.
11 Americans died under George W. Bush in embassy attacks. We did not politicize it.
We went political.
We did not politicize it. The politicization, I knew Ambassador Stevens.
So you're saying this was handled well? This was handled well.
It's a disservice to him for you to take a national tragedy and turn it into a political opportunity right away.
We are always doing this business of trying to prosecute and criminalize horrible disasters.
We did that under George Bush with the embassy tax.
Well, it's been going on for many, many years now in Washington.
Not an embassy tax.
And the fact is that just is not, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Why was the president on Letterman and The View selling this narrative?
The only place it gets you is to some political points with the base of your party. I think, I think the White House has handled this horribly. And I think that the fact is that, when you start dribbling out emails,
but Koki, why did they do it?
People then start to be very, very suspicious.
Okay, so before that, you had Santorum mention Boehner's reluctance or the challenge to do it. Pluff chimes in, talks about the attacks, and tries to make comparisons to the like of embassy attacks before. Van Jones jumps on that and says, you didn't have us doing this during the Bush administration, after Laura Ingraham once again highlights the facts of what actually happened and what the response was. Again, can't deal with the truth, never addressing what specifically happened. You heard her question, last question of that. So what you have is a point made by, that you didn't hear, which is because of time, by Santorum, backing up Ingraham on the truth, on the facts. Pluff distorting it, going to context and trying to compare it to other attacks. Nobody's in custody. I mean, Laura Ingraham takes that out of the park. And Van Jones picks up on the fact of, oh, no, we would do the same thing. We didn't do this to George W. Bush. Van Jones signed the letter. He wanted his name taken off once nominated, but he signed the 9/11truth.org letter calling for an investigation into 9/11. That was a part of 9/11truth.org. So I think he does politicize things. That said, and the conspiracy. Thanks, Van Jones, just highlighting that. Then you have, once again, Cokie Roberts coming in and saying, really, it's all, this is normal, let's not do, playing the game. Oh, yeah, it was bad this way. Again, they've hit. We were lied to. They didn't have evidence of a YouTube video. They kept advancing a false narrative, and they politicized and controversialized the reporting on it, rather than just hammering the truth over and over. Every time they're faced with the truth, they do a dodge, and Cokie Roberts leads the way, helped by Van Jones and David Pluff. More on the flip side, breaking down the debate. AFR Talk.